Debbie, you're muted.
Good evening, everyone. This is Debbie Wetzler, and I will be very pleased and excited to introduce our amazing, and I find her truly amazing, Dr. Carolyn Hoffman. She has been doing brilliant presentations about what redox is, where it's made, what it does for the body, what it does for the cells in your body, and all the benefits that it gives by supplementing and adding to what we have lost over time as we age since puberty. And so with that, I will get started, and I will talk to you a little bit later about how I've gone about sharing this and how an easy way is to share the information with people. So Dr. Carolyn Hoffman.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to be with you. Thank you very much, Debbie. We're going to start and just kind of talk about, I'm just going to set out 6 different things and reasons why people might be here this evening. I hope by the time we finish that what we share with you will just make common sense. That's really where I believe that this should be, because I do feel that this technology is something that impacts absolutely every single person on the planet. We'll explain why. But you might be here just because you're thinking about your own health, or maybe it's a family member who's got some challenges, and maybe you're looking for some solutions that perhaps you haven't found, even though you might have tried a lot of different things. Maybe you're here because you've heard or you've seen already some of the examples of the anti-aging benefits that we get from this. And this is because this system of how our cells communicate speaks right to the very basis of how we say looking young and healthy, or the reasons why things change with age. And we would love to combat that, right? We're all going to be older every single day. We can't stop that, but it's not how long we live, but it's certainly how healthy we are while we live. That I think is the most exciting thing about being able to do something that puts us in the driver's seat of our own health. Now, if you're an athlete, or you're a weekend warrior, or you just want to be athletic and energetic, there are beautiful outcomes that we see because we work with a lot of professional and Olympic athletes in this region. And we're going to show you why that can make a difference just for us. We don't have to be an Olympic athlete to benefit from it, thank goodness, because not everybody wants that. But it is going to give us the same kinds of benefits as it does for them in their professional performance. We might be, I hope, in the space that I think is the most valuable that you can be in, which is that prevention. You know, doing everything you possibly can to combat the fact that we're all getting older day by day, and there's nothing we can do about that in terms of time, but there is something that we can do to be able to present and protect every single cell that we have with the opportunity to be as healthy as possible. And so those are choices that we make in our life, and learning how we can add things in that can also support that. And this is where this sits. Sometimes I think we also come to experiencing something so amazing that when we get really great outcomes, what you'll probably find with the community that are here this evening, and probably the person that invited you, is that when we've experienced something amazing, if we really care and love about other people around us, we want to at least give them the opportunity to benefit the way that we're doing. And so we often love to share this information. There's a part of this that Debbie will talk about towards the end of it, and the community of us that are very passionate about paying it forward, because we've all probably had some amazing experience that's propelling us to want to let other people know that there are great options out there for doing something amazing for your health. So with that, my background is in naturopathy. I've been in the field of natural health for over 22 years. I'm also a digestive health specialist. That's really kind of where my primary interest is, because the gut informs everything that goes on in the health of the human body. So it all begins and ends there. And unfortunately, it spurs out in many different directions as a result of that. But I love to do the gut-brain function, the detoxification, and looking at essentially, as a naturopath, how do we support the body to do what it's designed to do? It's designed to heal. We all know that, but things go wrong, and our life is complicating things in many ways for many of us to be able to stay as healthy as we want to, because We are at a point probably in human history where we've never been so overloaded with pesticides and chemicals and all sorts of things that are assaulting the human body and make it more and more difficult for us to just simply live without being very present if we want to be healthy. So I'm going to share a screen with you so that I can give you some visuals, not just speak about this, because I know that we all learn in different ways. And Debbie, if you can give me thumbs up if that's clear. Cool, great, that's wonderful. All right, so we're going to talk about, as Debbie alluded to, this thing called redox signaling molecules. We're going to teach you today how this is the key to being able to reset our master switch of the human body. Why is that? Because redox signaling is the very essence that unlocks sustained energy and vitality and helps the body maintain health, and that should be our goal. So let's look at, the science shows us, if we look at this as a beautiful example of what we're going to dive into, the damage and the oxidative stress that starts on the inside, but eventually becomes something we can see on the outside. And as I'll always say to people, sadly, those wrinkles on the outside are a reflection of the wrinkles that are going on the inside. And it is because of this damage, these aging and damaged cells, and we see it beautifully in an apple much quicker than we do in the human body, but it is no different. We're getting these oxidated cells underneath us, and of course that can cause a lot of disease within us. So we're going to talk about that. I want to set the scene for you. The reason I actually use this is because I think this is just a beautiful example that science is telling us that these redox signaling molecules, they see changes with aging. And that they know categorically that redox signaling is literally essential for us to stay healthy. But they also know that with time and age or any kind of sustained deviation, maybe being sick, if we're out of balance for too long in this essential way in which we communicate, this redox homeostasis and being out of balance really leads us to end up with disease. And so when I started by saying to you, I hope by the time we get to the end of the call, that this is going to feel like it's just common sense. This is the reason why we are only alive because of these signaling molecules. We will die when we stop making them. We last about 3 seconds when we stop producing them. We are producing them, that's why we're alive. But we know that over time things change. And since that change, that shift from being in balance helps us to promote disease, how about being able to do something to counteract that? Wouldn't that make common sense? So these signals are the signals that literally regulate the very existence of the human body. What are they? Well, redox represents these two words, reductants and oxidants. This is the operating system of the human body. It's the thing that actually controls all of the energy that our cells are producing. It's the regulator. It's like the commander that says, where does the energy have to go? What does it need to do? And then it sets off all these positive and negative charges, flipping switches, basically to communicate with the body. How do you need to maintain health? I'm going to shift past one. Whoops, hang on a second here. Let's go back. I need to go to one more screen beyond. So what do they do? Well, these redox signaling molecules detect damaged cells. That's obviously essential, right? If something's going wrong below the surface, we want the body to know that that's happening. Why do we want that to happen? Because what happens as a result of detecting a damaged cell is that the body knows how to find that cell and then ask a couple of questions. Can I repair those damaged cells? Or do I need to delete them and get rid of those unhealthy cells, or maybe old aging cells, certainly cells that are giving out instructions that we would not want to be taking place when cells start to multiply out of control. And so the cells are going to say, can I repair or can I replace, and put in a place of it a nice new healthy cell. In other words, help us heal and recover. The other thing that redox signaling molecules do is they protect the natural lifespan of all our healthy cells. In other words, that's how we stay vibrant and optimally healthy. They're in charge of making sure that our gene signaling regulation is optimal. That's the thing that determines all of our cells duplicating themselves in a healthy way or things going wrong. We need strong genetic signals to know that our blueprint keeps operating at its best peak performance. And one of the other things they do is to strengthen our innate immune defense mechanisms. In other words, how our body knows how to sense when there's environmental toxins or bacteria or viruses, anything that's a threat to us, it's going to trigger that and help the immune system present a defense mechanism. So in other words, those are all aspects of what we take for granted, right? Staying healthy. And we want that to happen. Fortunately, we don't have to think about it, but these redox signaling molecules are making sure that it happens for us. So what are those oxidants and reductants? I like to think of them in simple terms rather than complicated scientific technology and terminology. Right? An oxidant is really like the 911 call. So when we have a damaged cell, the cells are going to send out this signal, these oxidant signals, which are like us calling on the fire and rescue on our phone and saying, I've got a fire in my house. I need you to come to where I live. And they're going to give the address, and the fire and rescue are going to turn up and solve the problem, put the fire out, and help everything get back to normal again. Now, when that 911 call goes out, the reductants are that fire and rescue. They've heard the call. They're going to seek and locate that damaged cell. They're going to go in there and they're going to do all those things that we just talked about. They're going to know whether they need to repair that cell or delete it and replace it with a nice new healthy one. And so this is a signaling system that's going on all the time. So it's really like a distress signal and then the solution that comes along. And that's what we want to be happening every nanosecond. Now, between birth and puberty, this is a beautiful mechanism. It's designed to send alert signals, distress signals, and respond super fast, solve the problem, and get ready for the next distress signal. And this goes on all the time, keeping us in a beautiful shape. But the challenge is that with age or with illness, this balance begins to shift. Our body begins to become weighed down with way too many damaged cells, way too many 911 signals going on, and just not enough resources any longer to respond to those signals, or the capacity to hear very clearly where those signals are coming from. So what happens is that things go wrong under the surface, and they don't get addressed by the human body, and they hang around and then they cause a problem. If that amasses over time, then of course we have something that has a title to it. But we know that this is the change that takes place. Why is it? Well, science has actually shown us that surprisingly, this redox signaling system begins to start to diminish at 1% per year from puberty. That's probably a lot earlier in our lifespan than we kind of think of as old age beginning, because that's really where it's starting, right? The decline begins that early. And we don't really probably notice or the look and the feel of the change until maybe we're in our 40s and 50s. We're beginning to see things change. We certainly know it's happened by the time we're in our 60s and 70s. We look and definitely feel very different. But who is healthier? Obviously, the younger people are much healthier. They're super energetic because they're full of these redox signaling molecules. They heal very quickly. They've got tons of recovery, right? If they fall over, they don't break bones as easily as we do in our 60s and 70s, and they heal much faster. That's because they have a lot more of these redox signaling molecules. Now, not only do we lose them at 10% per decade, but the ones that we have left, just because we're getting older, they're getting older too. And so they are also a lot less efficient than they would have been when we were younger. Now, the first redox signaling molecule was actually noticed way back for quite some time, but with the ability to actually analyze them scientifically with instrumentation came about in the early 90s. The first nitric oxide, the first redox signaling molecule notified was nitric oxide. And that awarded the first Nobel Prize, and that started this whole plethora and massive interest in this field of health science. So we know an awful lot about these redox signaling molecules. if you know anyone who's got angina, they're using nitric oxide, right? They will put nitroglycerin under their tongue. It's a signaling molecule that is expressed through the mucosa of the mouth and through to the brain. That's how these signals work. They're not ingested, we're not digested, right? We're not chewing anything and breaking anything up. They're actually signaling messengers through the mucosa. But this particular Nobel Prize was the first of 6. And as you'll look around the world, you'll notice that virtually every university is doing some kind of research into redox signaling molecules. Some of them have complete departments that are now dedicated to this field, but there's millions and millions of dollars of research out there because this is the leading field of health science. Now, science hasn't found a way to make a drug of it other than having nitric oxide, but we're not here to talk about drug mechanisms. We're here to talk about the fact that the development has enabled us to be using this every single day in our life for long-term health, and that's a much better place to be. The scientific challenge, however, is that these are highly unstable signaling molecules. They're highly reactive. And a publicly traded company was doing research into cardiovascular disease, HIV, and also diabetes. And they were making this product in limited quantities using very small devices. The challenge was they would only last a few moments and they had to be drunk on the spot. So there's nothing much you could do that was commercially viable for something that doesn't really hang around much more than just a firework or a spark. Vertis Norton, who was a retired vice president of strategy for Kraft Foods, knew of the company doing the research, and he intersected with them at a time when they were asking for support and help to be financially viable for the long haul in their research. That actually didn't pan out, even though he joined the board for about 3 or 4 months. But knowing what they had, and somewhat skeptical himself because the product starts with saline, he went and did a whole bunch of research, and he found that the work that had been done up until that point was highly validated by universities such as Harvard and UCLA and University of Washington in Indiana. And so he did something really interesting. He took up the baton, so to speak. He actually managed to purchase the 10 years of publicly traded research and patents, and he tasked a new group of researchers and scientists with, let's find out exactly what this is that they have and establish that it was redox signaling molecules, and managed to help them achieve what everyone said couldn't happen. They stabilized these highly reactive molecules outside the human body in a form that meant we could now have a lifespan of 12 months. But our science has grown so much beyond that, that now actually our stability is 21 months in length. That's a game changer. This was bringing to the table something that had never existed before. And it's interesting to know that not only were they first to market with stabilized redox signaling molecules, but to this day, no one else has managed to do exactly what we've done because it can't be reverse engineered. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So it makes it very unique that now we have this category that nobody's ever done before. Nobody knows what it is either, which is some of the challenges in terms of being able to educate people about what we have here, but also they're now the first to market with this technology. The patented process that we use replicates the mitochondrial function. It's within the mitochondria that is where our body is naturally making redox signaling molecules as part of our ATP process. The saline, which our body is breaking down, think about that. We are made up of saline, right? If we go into the hospital, they give us a saline drip. If you cry, you know that you taste salty, right? Your tears taste salty. Or if you sweat and you taste it, you know, that's salty too. It's because the saline is the fluid of the human body. And the cells use that saline and they break the components of saline apart into 4 atoms. Well, if we think about sodium, that's sodium and chloride is what salt is, right? And water is hydrogen and oxygen. So we have those 4 molecules. Now, the mitochondria is breaking them down naturally and reconfiguring them into multiple redox signaling molecules. Our patented process does exactly the same thing. We have to use the same ingredients. We can't make it in any other way. And so we replicate what the cells are doing. Now, we're not quite as smart as the cells, which can do it in a nanosecond. It takes us about 16 hours now. Our process has moved from 3.5 days to 16 hours because our science continues to expand so much. And so now we have this patented process of stabilized redox signaling molecules in a bottle. I think of it as suspended animation because all these little highly volatile molecules and full of energy are just sitting there waiting to go to work. And the trigger to make them go to work is when we drink them, because we are the spark. This is the FDA registered facility. It's the only one in the world that's actually producing the whole supply of redox signaling for 34 countries around the world. From here, the company delivers the product directly to the consumer's doorstep. And so this is where we know that it goes through all its multiple stages of production. It's guaranteed. We manufacture to drug manufacturing standards, and every batch is tested independently for third-party validation that what we're purchasing is definitely redox signaling molecules. I always recommend that people get it through whoever's invited you to the call. Don't go buying it on third-party websites. We want you to make sure that you're getting the product that is genuine. It comes from this site. It is guaranteed, and we know exactly, what we have there. As I mentioned, we're the first and only cell signaling supplement. We're still the first and only cell signaling supplement. We meet all of these guaranteed standards of production, which is really proof for you and I that if we're purchasing this product, we know exactly what we're getting. I love the fact that where we started in North Carolina with a drug manufacturing testing facility that was taking our product in every batch and proving what we had, but now we've moved to this amazing space where we have 2 facilities, one in Spain, one in Germany, who are themselves redox specialists and scientists. They're deeply researching this field of redox, and they take our product and they validate that what we're buying is redox certified molecules. Whoops, let me go back, sorry. So what do we have here? We actually have 4 redox technology products. This is the flagship, is the liquid. This is the thing that is going to help us reboot every single cell in the human body. But the brilliance of the science is that these highly reactive molecules were being sprayed by many people on the skin because people were beginning to feel benefits. This is a great way to be able to put it over joints that were hurting or affect your skin and support the body, not simply by drinking. So the company had to find a way to take the same liquid that we have in this bottle and actually find how can we actually give somebody something that you could apply to the skin instead of having to spray it on the skin. And they came up with the Renew 28. This was a 5-year research project. Why is that? Because virtually everything activates those molecules. And what they finally found was that silica clay would actually suspend the liquid in a certain amount of silica so we could apply it to the skin. And now we actually have something called Renew 28. You can see some of those clinical study results that came. We actually turn over skin cells 16% faster in 28 days. What does that mean? It actually means we're doing the literal anti-aging piece, right? If we can make our skin turn over quicker, we're moving backwards to how it used to turn over at the speeds it used to turn over when we were younger. Sadly, by the time we're 50, it's 90 days to turn over those skin cells. But when we're younger, it is about 28 days. And so that's why we call it Renew 28 with our 28-day study. The Renew Advanced Intensive Serum is twice as concentrated. It's designed for those fine lines and wrinkles. It's a beautiful product to use, especially if you really want to target some specific little spot that you really need some help with. And dimethicone is the basis of suspending the molecules there. Our latest product, very popular product, is finding a very special type of bentonite clay to suspend the redox molecules. This does beautiful things to our skin. It pulls out all of the toxins, tightens up the skin, brightens it, makes you look absolutely amazing. But our athletes are finding some intriguing ways of using it. They're actually using it on sore muscles because the bentonite clay really pulls the redox deeper into those muscles, and so it's soothing very sore muscles. Most of the time they'll be using this. And I know that I said it's a skincare product, but we'll talk about the fact that there's many other ways to use this technology. So these are our pure redox-based technologies, and I'll talk about the development of our understanding of redox and how we have some other products that we can offer. So this is redox from the outside in, and of course drinking it is from the inside out. As we mentioned, 16% skin cell renewal. You can see various changes on smoothness and wrinkles and elasticity. Who wants to get rid of those things? We all do, right? None of us wants to see those coming, even though they're there. But you can combat that on a daily basis by just using it morning and evening after you wash your face, but certainly also all over the body. We also have a 50% increase in microcirculation, which is really supportive for skin health. This is some examples of those statistics, right? We look at changes from befores and after in that 28-day study of improving the tightness and tone and elasticity of the skin, really helping to calm the skin down, both from the inside and the outside. We get that benefit with topical and ingested redox. And then improving things like the fine lines and wrinkles that come with time. I mentioned this is an all-over body skin therapy. We don't just have to put this on the face. So wherever you would love to improve and turn over those skin cells quicker, apply it all over the body. A lot of people were using it for cellulite. They wondered if it really improved it because they were seeing changes, and the company did another study. We have a 16% improvement in both the size and the fluffiness of our cellulite. So in other words, helping to diminish that. We know that we soothe irritated skin. Why is that? Because redox goes right to the heart of how the body controls inflammation. And if it doesn't, then we know that we have a lot of inflammatory challenges with our health. I mentioned that athletes, Olympic athletes, use this. I love the fact that if you have a product that an Olympic athlete is using, you need to know that there is a lot of validation and consideration before anything is given to an Olympic athlete that they take in that could possibly affect their performance because their career is on the line. So a lot of doctors have vetted anything that an Olympic athlete will use. That to me says an awful lot, right? If it's good enough for an Olympic athlete, it's definitely going to be good enough for me. But what is so beautiful about this is a lot of our early studies and at Appalachian Human Performance Labs started out by putting mice on a treadmill and a little mouse mill, running them until exhaustion. And then they put them onto ASEA, liquid ASEA, for 7 days. Then they repeated it. They ran them to exhaustion a second time. As I always love the fact that the mice were not induced by any cheese at the end of the run, but they ran 29% longer. And so what that triggered was this exploration into the reason why. And what we see is that we get a 29% increase in endurance, faster recovery, as we've talked about with the repair-replace mechanism, and also sharper mental acuity. Well, that translates out to all of the studies that they've done with the athletes, right? We'll see them getting improved performance, quicker recovery, being able to practice more frequently without being sore. And that gives them the edge. And we see some really amazing results. I would encourage you to look at discoverredox.com and go to the athlete page. But you'll see, for example, Sean Burke, I think, is a remarkable example of the fact that at 50, he was about to give up racing as an Ironman athlete because he was just unable to practice enough and he was hurting too much and his recovery was way too slow. Now, between 50 and 62, he's been racing on ASEA, and he has actually found that he has managed to beat records, personal best records that he made in his 20s between 50 and 60. Now, what would that mean to you and me, right? If we can really outperform what we used to feel like when we were in our 20s, how is that going to change your daily life? Because that's really what it comes down to for you and I. If you can spot points in your life where you don't have as much energy as you have hours in the day to do all the things you want, then this is how this could be of benefit to support you. What else would you be able to pick up that you managed to give up doing that you would love to do in your life? How would that change your life? So I know that obviously most people nowadays, we often talk about Amazon Prime of Health, right? People want to take things and they want to know immediately, or at least within a month, that whatever they had for 3 or 4 or 5 months, or even 3 or 5 years, will go away quickly. Unfortunately, health isn't really like that. It takes time for us to change cells, whatever you choose to do, for the body to reveal what's happening. But how could you know? Well, this is the beauty of the Renew 28. If you haven't experienced this and you have something that hurts you, this is what I'm going to recommend you do. This was the thing that I took into my practice to evaluate for myself. What was the purpose of this? Did it really impact things? Was this something I wanted my clients to have access to? And so I asked them to do this thing that I'm going to tell you. If you've got something that hurts, I want you to rate it from 1 to 10. Now, that's not just something that simply hurts. It may be that it's motion. Maybe it's hands that don't flex like they used to. Maybe it's knees that don't work as well. Or perhaps it's stiff necks and shoulders from sitting at computers all day now, as we do. All right. Or maybe it's just, being able to get up the stairs as easily. Perhaps you get so far up and it just hurts too much and you can't do any more. Well, go rate that and see how bad it is. And then take the gel. I want you to shake it. It's exactly the same as you have in the liquid with this certain amount of silica clay. And then take a good raspberry amount. You can see it's totally clear. I want you to apply this to the area that hurts. You'll see that it's already, it's really non-greasy. It doesn't have a smell of any type. It's actually working the moment it comes in contact with you, because you and me, we're all the spark. We're organic, right? We set these molecules off and they do their thing. But I want you to do something. I want you to apply it 3 times in 5 minutes. And then I want you to go check out whatever was the problem. How flexible are your hands? Is your shoulder more mobile than it was before? Is your neck more flexible? Can you climb more stairs with less discomfort? Because this was what I wanted to assess with my clients. And what I want to show you is this was the examples when I said to my clients, I'm testing this out. Can you give me some feedback? And we did exactly this, right? We rated their level of discomfort. We applied it 3 times in 5 minutes and we waited 5 minutes and then we checked it out again. And I was just keeping documents on what I was seeing. And here, what was amazing to me, that first one, that hip replacement patient, she was about to have the hip replacement the following day. She came in with a level 8 of discomfort and she actually went to a 0 in 2 minutes. That just blew me away, because this is not an analgesic, right? This is actually resetting and fire hosing that challenge that your cells have and giving it a lot more redox so it can start to work the way it was designed to work. But these are the kinds of outcomes that I saw as I was evaluating the place for redox in my practice. So I would encourage you to not only try it on yourself, but if you get some of this, go and find your friends and do it on them as well. And kind of look at the differences in the way that the body responds. But what is it telling you? Well, it's giving you a chance to know in 10 minutes something you're not going to know in 10 minutes with the liquid, is how quickly these molecules go to work. And it gives you a chance to build a sense of confidence that while you drink that liquid, it's going to be doing things underneath, and then you can track and wait for those changes to appear. They're not going to happen in 10 minutes. Having experienced the gel, I was curious about the liquid, and my first guinea pig, so to speak, was my husband. He'd actually struggled for the last 22 years with being able to breathe and exercise adequately. We had tried just about everything that had come through our pathway over those 22 years. We got some resolution, a little bit, to feeling a little bit more comfortable. We never got him off of it needing help in order to control those particular outcomes. And sometimes when those outcomes of being challenged really weren't controllable, he would end up in the ER, and that became an expensive project over each year. But I gave him the liquid. And we started him with the 4 ounces, as most typically we do with everybody over the first week. But in the second week, we actually moved to taking 8 ounces a day. Why is that? Well, we do find all our clinical studies are done on 8 ounces, and that really kind of super saturates our cells much quicker. And we call it the magic 8 for a good reason, right? Because a lot of people see this magical breakthrough when we super saturate at that level. But at the end of 2 weeks, here was what was remarkable to me, was that we'd gone with somebody who struggled to be able to do some pretty rudimentary things, to being able to spend a whole day in the garden, climbing trees, chainsawing branches, cutting down bushes, cleaning up in the garden. And at the end of the day, I said to him, "How many times did you use your inhaler?" And he kind of looked a little surprised and said, "Oh, I haven't." And I said, "Wow." I said, "I have no clue what we've got our hands on here, but now I need to know more. Why is it that this one thing could make such a change in just 2 weeks when all the other things I'd done for 22 years had never, ever achieved that?" It's got me digging deeper. And I want to show you that I had my second experience of what we probably think of as too good to be true, right? When you see these remarkable shifts in somebody's health that don't seem to make any sense because they seem too incredible. I had a client referred to me who'd been challenged for 30 years with 3 particular co-infections. She had head to toe discomfort. She didn't have a memory. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't work, had foggy thinking. And separately in that 30-year journey, it had some brain complications and an operation that left her with a lot of facial sensitivity. In reading the books, because now I was curious, why did these things do what they did to my husband, right? But I began to wonder, is this the missing link? And I made a suggestion to her when I called her, and I said, I don't know enough about this yet. I said, because I really don't fully understand it, but I do know that it's not vitamins, it's not minerals, it's not CBD oils or antioxidants or juices, any of those things that you've done. This speaks to the way that the cells communicate. And I said, if this works the way I think it might do, it may be the missing link for you, and you may not even need to come and see me. I said, so I'm going to suggest that you may want to think about taking the money and directing it instead to buying this product and trying it for 3 months instead of seeing me first. I said, but you do what you want. This is just my suggestion. It's a hunch that I have. She did this, and really I was again blown away, because in 30 days this woman had had a 90% shift in her health. And I really knew at that point that I had my hands on something that worked very, very differently than anything I'd ever done before. Other examples are, journeys with skin challenges with my chiropractor, looking at helping a woman who was going through a very distressing period where her hair was falling out in chunks. She was on medication for hormonal issues. And over 9 months to a year, we were able to get her into a place where her doctors decided she no longer needed medication. She's 3 years out. She's still not on any meds. Her hair looks amazing, as you can see from this photograph, and she continues to send me her updates. Or like the gentleman on the right who was challenged with mobility issues and loss of energy and no longer able to skydive in his 70s and feeling like life was kind of tailoring down to being pretty boring and, waiting to die. But all of those things changed because we were able to help the body fix the cell. And when you can fix the cell, the body can become well. Why is that? Because we're 70 to 100 trillion cells, and they make up every single section of the body and every organ system. So when we have a challenge somewhere, we have a challenge with damage in maybe the cardiovascular cells or damage in the respiratory system. It's really about damaged cells. And so we want to help the body learn how to get back to a place of being able to fix the cell the way it's designed to. The SEER actually also commits a lot of money to additional research outside of what's going on in the world. And one of these studies that I think is worth talking about is our 8-week double-blind placebo-controlled genetic study. This is significant, right? Because the blueprint of us as humans is based in genetic expression. We need healthy genetic expression for a healthy outcome on a long-term basis and not placing disease in our way. 100% of these 35-year-olds had their blood tested before they started this, and their genetics were already turning off. But after 8 weeks on the redox, 100% of them had a 20 to 31% sustained and beneficial improvement in these 5 genetic pathways, improving immune health, cardiovascular health, improving gut health with digestive enzyme production, modulating vitality and hormonal pathways, excuse me, maintaining a healthy inflammatory response. And as I talked about, the innate immune signaling system, making the body a lot more stress resilient, which is the key to whether we can avoid things that come around us, being able to respond to external stresses, environmental toxins, pollutants, emotional stress, food stress, any of those things that go on. You'll notice on the bottom on the left that the placebo was the plain saline, the same saline that we use that eventually becomes redox signaling, and there was a 0% response in that. Those are extremely unique, and I would think just about unheard of clinical responses. I want to show you that genetics is not just one word. Each of those pathways is not just one thing. It is a domino effect. As we said, this is a signaling regulator. It's passing information all over the body, giving instructions for the body to work. This is the inflammatory gene signaling pathway. Just look at what's in blue. What that means is if those things are healthy for you, then that pathway is healthy. It's a good genetic pathway. But maybe if you've got challenges with sleep, or maybe your insulin signaling is not so good, or perhaps your memory is not so good, those would be pathways that you would want to strengthen as a result of improving genetic signaling. And so that's a beautiful example to realize just how much is going on at a genetic level. Other studies show that we increase our efficacy of glutathione. That's our most important master antioxidant that we're making in every cell all the time. That goes up by 800%. Our most recent studies show that we also increase our antioxidant production, our NRF2 production, by 60%. Those are the most important antioxidants that we can possibly have. There are no amounts of physical antioxidants that we can consume that would ever match what our cells are designed to produce, and neither could we consume enough of them, and they're not going to be as effective. A lot of the time, antioxidant supplements that we ingest can often cause a lot more oxidation, interestingly, because they work against each other. So we want the internal work to be as strong as possible. Our other most interesting study that I think is going to take us in a different direction as we continue our research is the one on our worm study there, with a 15% increase in lifespan. I'm wondering what that's going to mean for us as humans as time moves on. These are the developments of redox understanding that we have, right? How we take nutraceuticals, active bioactive ingredients from food-based sources to target specific outcomes in our cells. Those powders that you can see in those packets on the left-hand side here are designed to be on the go, easy drinkable versions of energy in yellow, mind and mood, mind and focus and concentration in red, mood in blue, and a vegan collagen basis in the lavender. The top three you can drink warm or cold. You can combine them together, and they're a way to actually get a very immediate boost from redox that lasts, up to 5 to 6 hours. You can take them up to 3 times a day. The collagen is an incredible collagen. It's not about animal collagen. It's actually providing us the building blocks of collagen through plant sources that enables the body to make all types of collagen, not just the kind of 1 or 3 that you get in a lot of the products on the market. And we support skin through the science of redox and aging at skin level. And we also support providing the nutrients through organic, non-GMO, whole food supplements that are designed to work with the labor, which is the redox. recharging our cells. Our health, if we look at all the different things that we want to track about our health, can look very different, really, depending upon whether we're talking about our memory or our digestion or maybe our nervous system. But we want you to track everything. The person who invited you has an amazing tracker that can help you record exactly where you're starting and then track the changes over 7 days, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and on. And your body is going to determine the timeline, which means that everyone's journey is going to be different. But as I mentioned at the beginning, we would suggest you start with 4 ounces a day. At the end of the first week, about 10 or 15 people, 15% of people will see something change, but most of us are still going to be waiting for our big aha as our body continues to replace lots more cells and make them more energetically healthy. If you continue at the 4 ounces a day, by the end of the first month, about 50% of people are excited with the changes. But as you noticed, I said we doubled up to the 8 ounces. So at the end of that first week, if you haven't seen anything, we often recommend that you double up because your health changes and your replacement of cells is going to happen much quicker. But at 90 days in, what we're seeing is that 90% of people are really excited with those changes. But benchmark everything, the big, the small, the indifferent, just everything, because you're going to take a look at which one's going to change first. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee on our product. And I want to show you that this is the typical pathway of what we think of as aging, right? We look good when we're younger and things alter as we get older and we lose a lot of the energy. But I want to show you that when we interrupt the breakdown of aging by rebuilding those redox signaling molecules on a daily basis, this is a real life example. This is Rosie, who began her journey at 84. The second picture is her at 7 weeks, and we say take photos because she didn't think that she looked any different until her son showed her the photo. This is her at 87, and this is her at 91. I will say that this is truly the most influential product technology I've ever worked with. I don't have a single product that on its own could take somebody who's 84, move them through 7 years of their life and actually make them look like they've gone back at least 10 years earlier than they were when they began. There's no supplement that I've ever worked with that does that. These are a couple of other resources that the person who invited you to can take you to these if you're wanting more information. I want to swap over and stop the share and pop back to Debbie. And Debbie's going to talk about the background as one of the original members of ASEA here and her desire to fulfill Verdis Norton's request, right, to help take this to the world.
Yes, thank you. As you can see, with what Dr. Carolyn Hoffman has shared with you, why I was so excited when I first learned about this. However, we didn't have all these studies and we didn't have all this information. And so I was so excited because the 6 reasons that she mentioned to begin with, I wanted all of those. So when I learned about this and I learned that it was made in the cells of your body, it was native to your body, and it could help with prevention. It could help with your athletic ability. It could help with looking younger. It could help somebody I love. It could help me. It could prevent things from happening in the future that I never know I would have had. There were every single one of those things I wanted for myself, but for everyone I loved also. And so when I first learned about this, like I said, we had none of this information. This was 14 years ago. And the only person I could think of that might be able to help me understand a little bit more and understand what this was and explain it a little bit more in detail, because of compliance, we're not allowed to say a lot of things. And especially when we were first starting, we knew really nothing about what this could do. And so I called a girlfriend of mine who had been a molecular biologist, and she graduated from Johns Hopkins. She was extremely smart, and she had gotten a job at the National Institutes of Health, which is the largest research center in the world. It covers blocks and blocks in the Washington, D.C. area. And I drove to her house and I put this information down in front of her and I said, can you explain this? Have you ever even heard of this? I have never heard of this. And she took one look and looked at me and looked back again, and she almost fell off her chair and just said, Debbie, I've been studying these molecules for 17 years. and talk about divine intervention of who I called first. She said, we've had scientists from around the world come to NIH to try to do this, and no one's been successful. But you're telling me that somebody was finally able to make and stabilize these molecules outside the human body in a bioactive form. And when I said yes, she said, you have no idea how massive this is. This will change the medical field as you know it. And I just remember getting the chills thinking, oh my gosh, how did I find out about this so early on? And she took this big, thick textbook. We didn't have Redox Life quite yet, the first book Carolyn showed, but it was another big, thick textbook all about redox. Every page was about redox. And I was looking through it, and she was the first one to explain, because she worked in the mental division of NIH, that these particular ones, are 4 atoms big or smaller. They would go through the blood-brain barrier. Drugs don't do that. The blood-brain barrier is designed to keep out, larger toxins, definitely, than what can affect the rest of your body. And so she said, so not only will you have amazing results in the body, you're also going to have amazing results with all the mental issues that you can think of, memory loss or injury or anything that can affect your brain and your way of thinking. And so again, I got the chills, and I just thought, oh my gosh, there's so many people that I love that need this. And so the first person I got it on was my mother. And I very funnily called her my guinea pig, but I knew this could help her. She had breathing issues. She had a heart issue. She had neurological issues. She had joint issues. She had blood issues. She had so many different things. And so I got this on her, and I just kept seeing her heal and heal and heal until she had none of the issues. And this woman was 88 when she started. So you can imagine, maybe she had 3 redox molecules left in her body. I don't know what it is, but so she just kept improving and improving. But in the meantime, I had so many friends that had major issues. And I just kept calling them. And I have to say that one of the things you should understand is that when you're calling people, especially if you've just learned about this, nobody will know you as a redox expert. You're going to be whoever you are to that person. If you know, now, except for people like Dr. Hoffman, who was already a doctor. But the rest of us had other careers. I was an interior designer. I also worked in a restaurant at one point. So people knew me as that, not as a redox expert. So I knew to get them on the phone with someone like a Carolyn Hoffman. And really, there were just a few of us in the business at the time. So all I would do is create interest. I would call and say, I care about you. I would love you to know about this breakthrough that I just learned about. It's extraordinary. I'm seeing things that doctors never thought they would see. Will you please take the time to learn about it? I don't care what you do with the information. I always took everything away. I wasn't expecting them to buy or join or do whatever. I just wanted them to learn about it. And that's probably the easiest way to get somebody to take their walls down and look at something with an open mind. And so all of my friends did that. And then I would get them on the phone with the few people who were in at the time. So I had a few people I could call, and they could answer the questions. And they were a redox expert to my friends. And so listening to them over and over and over, because they knew a lot. They knew a lot more than I did at the time. I was able to learn so that I could become the expert for my friends' friends when they asked me to share this with other people. And in that way, I can tell you that I was in very difficult financial straits for the first time in my life. And I was 60 years old at the time. So it wasn't a good situation to be in. And I was a single mom, and I had a daughter, and she was still living with me. And the situation I was caught in was not allowing me to have any money come in. So when I finally got a job as a server in a restaurant, I was working double shifts to try to make enough money to feed my daughter and to keep the electricity on and all that kind of stuff. But I was getting further and further behind in my mortgage. And because of that, I really stepped up. And so in the 20 minutes a day I had, because that was the only break I had during the day, I would step out and call 3 people. And 3 people would respond, and I said, "I don't have much time," which was honestly the truth. "But I care about you and I want you to know about this. Will you take the time to look at a video?" We had 1 video at the time. We didn't have all these extraordinary webinars with this much more information and this many studies and this many other things. We were just doing this because we cared about people. And this is what I did until the time about a year later when I could quit that job because I was making enough money and it turned me around completely financially to be able to help so many more people because now I could do it full time, which is what I wanted from the moment I heard about this. And so know that this offers not only your health back and reduces stress and helps you in so many different ways. Know that this also can help you financially because you are actually giving a gift to people, a gift that you know about and they don't know about it yet. And there are so many different people out there with so many different things that doctors can't even diagnose. Lyme's disease can go untreated for years without doctors knowing what it is. There's so many different things out there that people don't know and doctors don't know what people have because there's so many weird symptoms now. And these molecules don't care. They don't care what doctors call it. They don't care that it could be called any disease in the world. These molecules just know that they're damaged and they go right there and they send the signal and the immune system comes in and starts repairing and replacing. So this has literally helped everything I have ever seen out there, diseases I've never even heard of that I've been told about. And I've just seen it improve people's lives in so many ways. And so if you really want to help people, and Carolyn mentioned this to begin with, this gave my life a purpose again. I had raised my children. I had been a good wife. I had worked my whole life. I had done a lot of things, but this gave my life purpose. And when I started meeting the people in ASEA, we were just at a fly-in. There's so many people who are out there who are in ASEA who really care about people, who don't put on airs, who you can be comfortable with, who you can open up to, who you can talk to. This has become my family. It's become the family for many, many people. So if you're, I don't want to say if you're older, because younger people, they're on social media all the time and they don't go out and meet people anymore. So if you'd like to meet some very wonderful people in your life, expand your friendships, expand your purpose, help people who really need it, then I would take a look at the business of this. The business is just educating, like Dr. Hoffman just did. All we do is educate. If people want to try it, that's great. If they don't want to try it, we honor their decision. We do keep them involved and knowing of the research that's going on, because I was just at the fly-in. They've got 7 more studies that they're researching at this point. So this does an awful lot for the cells in your body, and they're proving it through the research and the white papers that we've been publishing. So know that to keep up with the research, know to look into this for many reasons. And please, please think about joining us. We need help. We need help to get the word out to people, because so many of you, well, all of you know people that I don't know. And if you decide not to do this, they won't hear about it right away anyway. And that could be crucial to their health. So I would very much encourage you just to kind of look at this. You don't have to become a salesman. You're an educator. And please take a look at this and know that it can help change the world in so many different ways. And so now I think Dr. Hoffman is probably open to answering questions that you might have about the product. I can answer questions about the business if you'd like. So you can either unmute yourself and or